Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Today, we are going to talk about helping businesses grow with AI. My guest today is Tobias Zwingmann. You know him if you are on LinkedIn. His stuff about AI has a lot of followers. He's doing a lot of awesome content, and I see him in my timeline all the time. So I'm excited to have him here. Hey, Tobias.
Hey, Andreas, how are you?
Fine, thanks. You?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here. So excited.
Yeah, let's talk about businesses and AI, which is
Absolutely.
an interesting topic. Let's let's say. For
Never ending
everybody,
topic.
yeah, it's good that it is. So for everybody here, welcome. I already see a few people here, Tia, Sriam, and so on. If you have questions, put them in the chat. Tobias is going to answer them. And yeah, then let's start. Tobias, small, medium-sized businesses growing with AI, is that a difficult topic?
I think it's getting easier, to be honest. I think it was much worse in the past. And why is that? Because I think especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, and I mean, we had this discussion before, like what is a small or medium-sized enterprise? Like in my definition, a medium-sized enterprise is still something with like 1,000 employees. That's still a medium-sized enterprise. We're not talking about like, the 100,000 plus enterprises here. But I think it's getting easier. And why is it getting easier? Because back then, 1 year or so ago, in the like old days of AI, when you wanted to do something with AI, you had to actually always build some AI solution yourself. So that meant like getting people in-house, having a big data engineering team, data scientists, and like everything which is like super expensive to do. And I think this has shifted a little bit. Right now, organizations can just use like a lot of more things that are out there, and then they can use that to build first prototype, but also scale that to like production applications, which is not always that easy, granted, but it's possible. So I think this is where SMEs can really benefit from AI right now, just by leveraging what's out there and being smart about what their business is about, which problems they have, and finding the real good spots where the business problems they have can be actually solved with AI. Because I think this is the challenge, actually, like figuring out what is there, what problems do we have, and how can we bring that together. I think this is what SMEs should be focused on right now.
You think that's when you say the last few months? I'm always immediately thinking about OpenAI. Like, is that the game changer? Or
Yeah, I mean, we just have to see the adoption of AI in general. Like OpenAI really has made AI more accessible. Like we have to say that, like ChatGPT has what 100 million users, something like that. Lots of people using it who are not coming from a technical angle, from a technical background. So these days, I speak a lot with clients who work or who are located in the marketing or sales department of organizations who would not be the like first like point of contact for an AI solution without ChatGPT and without OpenAI, because the whole conversational interface and the whole, as I call it, augmented way of working with these AI models just enabled so many people that are not from a technical background to interact with these systems. And I think that's beautiful, right? Because in the end, that's what we need. This is what, especially in the data realm, has always kind of been a bottleneck in organizations, that we hired data scientists and we like got analytics teams, but they always hit that ceiling of not being able to scale like across the organization, because like you can't transform every people or every person in your organization into a data analyst or a data scientist. It's just not possible. So what do you do? And I think you just have to make technology so seamless and easy to use that it just kind of injects in their workflows and makes them just more powerful and capable of what they do. And I think not only ChatGPT or large language models, but the way that AI is developing right now, I think this is actually the right direction for this one.
but I still guess that it's a lot of integration work, right? If when you say you want to make it seamless, prototype is usually quite easy, but then making it really bring it into production, having it roll out in the whole company can be a bit difficult.
Yeah, I mean, rolling like software out in the company is always difficult. But like I have a framework where I classify these AI use cases in 4 different categories, depending on the level of integration and automation. And the first like baby step that everyone should do is to start with a low automation and low integration use case. This is what I call the assistance. It's something like ChatGPT, like you copy paste stuff, you paste something in, you get something out, but it's all copy paste work. So, but that's like where most people start. Then, like if you go up, you still have low automation, but you have higher integration. This is, for example, when you opt in to choose a tool like Microsoft Copilot. These are tools which are like more integrated in your ecosystem, more integrated into your software, but they are not like fully automated. They are still like, they just give you suggestions and you need to accept that. Then you have like on the axis where you say, okay, they are more automated, but not so much integrated. You have what I call autopilots. So a good example for this is a lot of projects that I'm doing, chatbots, customer support chatbots. And let's say you integrate one of these customer support chatbots on your website for first level support. The integration is literally just one line of code. You just pull some JavaScript code from from a different server. But you don't integrate this chatbot with your organization's infrastructure. For example, this chatbot is not able to do a password reset for a customer. It's not able to like get some like personal customer record. That's not possible. But still, it can provide a lot of value just by being able to like answer a lot of like repetitive questions that are coming from first level customer support and like take work off from them. So this is the like autopilot use case as I call it. And then like the final and last stage, and this is like where everyone wants to go at, is the agents scenario where you have very highly integrated and highly automated workflows. Imagine, for example, having this chatbot being able to integrate in your system environment to like do things like a password reset, for example, or change customer records. But I think we're not there yet. Like we don't have those use cases that are super highly augmented, super highly automated, and super highly integrated. But I do see that a lot of companies, a lot of like just people and businesses find a lot of value from these assistant and co-pilot use case, and these are the ones that I call augmented use cases. These are use cases where you have a human in the loop, where this employee or this staff member can use AI to like be either more productive or to challenge their own work, to be like to produce higher quality. And I think this is, if you just consider this single person and this single use case, it's not like a multi-million-dollar use case, but it's like these are use cases which are happening a lot in companies. So like if every employee is just being able to like improve their like productivity or quality of work by what, 10, 20, maybe even 30%, I mean, that's a huge gain for the whole organization if they are doing this. And I think, like coming back to the SME example, this is where SMEs can really can really shine, because the typical SME does not have a like data science or a AI use case where you say, okay, if I improve this recommendation service now by 5%, then I will have like $20 million increase like in my top line revenue growth. It doesn't happen. They don't have that scale. But they typically have a situation where the people inside the organization where multiple heads like do different things at the same time. And once you offload some work from them, like for example, these repetitive email responding task, these people can actually do something else with their time, which is more valuable, because these are not people sitting inside a call center just like doing customer service the whole day. They do other things. Sometimes it's people from the project management team that are doing some customer service work next to their actual job. So there's a lot of like interchange of these topics, and I think this is where AI can really be helpful.
How are companies seeing this today? Because I remember times where if you were trying to do something that is improving work, that is optimizing workflows, that is indirectly making money, it was always difficult to do that, because management was always looking for, we need to directly make money with this, with this solution. How's that today?
I think in the end, you have to have a good, strong business case. If the investment in the AI solution right now does not require you to hire 5 data scientists and 6 other people, you can also go away with a very kind of like quote unquote low impact business case, because the costs are also not that high. You can use off the shelf services. Sometimes you can you can just buy a subscription for a couple of users, and literally that's it. You need some training for your employees, but that's it. Like you don't have any other investment, so it's a good business case in the end. And I always have the when companies approach me for AI use cases, I always have the paradigm of saying, start small, take small steps, but like have a big picture, like have the big idea up front, like because ultimately there will be lots of AI use cases you could potentially do, but for most companies, it's a journey to get there. So how do you start? You don't start by making a huge upfront investment into AI, especially not if you're a small company. So what do? Like, you have to learn along the way, and you have to learn as you like walk. And I think these augmented use cases, they are an incredible opportunity for that, because A, we have the like direct efficiency or productivity gains, but B, and I think this is even more important, you automatically upskill your people to learn how to interact with these AI systems. And at one point in time, maybe these AI systems will be more integrated and more automated in your workflows. But when this time comes, your employees will be ready to use that because they have learned how these AI systems work at the beginning. That's much easier to make this transition compared to, okay, like, no one has ever touched that AI thing, and now we suddenly trying to integrate that into our core business. That's not going to work. So I think like it's like these two aspects. And of course, if you run it by the numbers, and if you run any hard numbers there, you probably won't find these like super use cases where you have, I don't know, like another 5 million contribution to your business for small, medium-sized enterprises. But a lot of these use cases will be just like, will have a positive ROI on the first year, and for a lot of companies, this is great, right? Because you have all these additional benefits on the side as well.
Are you working usually with German companies or also with other companies?
Yeah, more and more German companies, fortunately. So until last year, actually, a lot of my focus has been on the US, because it's always a lot of innovation happening there, and also like a bigger openness for the topic. But meanwhile, I do see that here in Germany, more companies are getting aware of the necessity to do something with AI. And like the way the typical case works like this. I get approached by a company who has heard something about AI and then sees me and wants to do something with AI. The classical example is, we want to build an internal LLM, like we want to build an internal ChatGPT. And then like we have the first call, they say, okay, I want to build my internal LLM. I ask them, do you have 200 million euros to spend? They say no. And I say, okay, let's make a plan. What can we do? Because normally they don't want to build an internal LLM. They just overheard that somewhere that some companies are doing this. But what they want is, for example, to have something like an internal, just a very good, capable search engine that is able to pull the information from different criteria for like sales purposes or for HR purposes or for whatever purposes. And this is where I typically like sit together with them, and like there are different methodologies. One, the AI design sprint, where we figure out, okay, what could be areas where AI can be really contributing to your business, and then we just like do the mapping essentially and figure out what are current bottlenecks and pain points and what are AI capabilities that are actually really suitable for solving these. And then we bring them together and build a roadmap of how to take the first steps and how to bring you to that long-term goal and long-term vision. And and this typically does not involve building your own custom LLM from the first start.
Yeah, that's true. The thing is, because like you said, you're like, the companies approach you, and if the best case would be they already have a vision in mind where they want to go. But I'm guessing it's not always that easy. As you said, you have to do some workshops and you have to figure it out with them together, because most likely so I can see two use cases or two cases. One, you have management that have, just like you said, have heard about it and want to do something, or you have somebody who has a vision, who knows a bit the topic, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What's the typical case, or what's the distribution of these two?
I mean, like a lot of interest right now is definitely in generative AI, especially ChatGPT. Maybe I'm biased in that regard, because honestly, I don't do that many use cases with, let's say, Midjourney or any image generation tools. Like my work is very much focused on LLMs, large language models. But I think this is what has the attention right now. And I think the job of like AI consultants like me is to take this attention and put this into perspective of what's a realistic scenario after that. Because, okay, we have ChatGPT and generative AI as one type of AI, but like there are also other types of AI out there. Like we can do classical supervised machine learning, we have AutoML, we have natural language processing, which is like does not involve generative AI. So what's actually the use case here? And this is where I try to help and map these capabilities which are out there to these use cases. So I would not actually say that it's bad that there is now a big attention on the AI topic. I think the only job is to translate that into a realistic expectation and into a plan of how you can make that into a reality. Because I'm deeply convinced, I deeply believe that like this is the worst AI system that we will ever see right now. Like there's just one way which is going forward. The only question is how long will it take? And the other question is your organization, and this is like kind of leaving the AI space a bit, but is your organization able to adapt to change? Is your organization able to adopt new technologies that are out there? Is it able to get the people inside that organization like either reskilled or upskilled, depending on what's currently needed on the job market for this organization? And this takes a lot of time to do this. So I think what we see right now is the first, just like the first impact in this, in this whole scenario. But there will be much more to come down the road. So I think now is actually a pretty good time to do these first steps, because again, you can't, like the way I think about business cases and also like these first use cases is, don't get too much excited about the potential upside of things. Like, don't think that this use case could kind of revolutionize or transform your business or whatever. But you should be concerned about like limiting the downsides. Like when you do this use case, okay, what could go wrong? Okay, maybe you lose some money for this first initial prototype or for this first initial investment, but you have a pretty decent chance that this will at least be ROI positive for the first year, or have an even higher upside. But you can't really control that. But you should be able to control the downsides. And I think this is a big, at least to a certain degree, a paradigm shift to what we have seen before, where a lot of, especially larger companies, have made their bigger investment into data and data science, hiring and building up data engineering, data science, AI, whatever you call it, teams, with the big hope that they will find those big impactful use cases that will drive like top line revenue growth. And I think what we have seen is that indeed for some large companies, there have been like a handful of pretty good AI ML use cases, but like that's it, right? There wasn't like an unlimited amount of that use cases going forward. Like whenever you looked at the next use case after these kind of like top 5 champion use cases that you have in your organization, every other use case was very much kind of, if you just look at that use case, the upside isn't really there. It just doesn't justify like throwing your whole data science department on that use case, because then you don't have a good business case. And I think this is like where we right now are able to use these technologies which are out there and just like minimize the downside of it and just focus more on like how do we control the cost and how do we actually get a positive ROI here from that project. And I think this is what also German companies like a lot. So because for German companies, very often they don't get too excited about the big vision going forward and how this could revolutionize and transform your business. But if you tell them that, hey, actually, maybe it just like gives you like 50,000 or 100,000 euros per year in additional profit, but it's very likely that this is going to happen. They're good with that, right? Why not? Yeah. Why not do it?
And if you tell them then, if it doesn't work, then you haven't lost a bunch of money. Then okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like it's kind of a different approach to driving these innovation topics. I think because it does not require a lot of money, but also B, and I think this is in a lot of cases even more important. It doesn't require a lot of organizational change because it doesn't require you to build a new data or a new AI department to benefit from this technology. Because AI right now is such a horizontal technology. The actual organizational approach should be to foster or to support AI initiatives that are happening across decentralized in the business. And ideally, you have some point in your organization, you can call it an AI center of excellence, or something. In many cases, just the like data analytics department doing this, that is kind of like, just coordinating these efforts and maybe bringing the right people together to make sure that like you don't make the same mistakes like 2 or 3 times. But in the end, like modern AI must be something which is like driven very much from the individual teams across multiple business units. And again, like this doesn't require you to build a big centralized AI department to build that next big model for your organization. It's not needed.
Yeah, but at some point, as you said, at some point you need a few people that are taking care of the initiatives, right? That look at the maintenance or take care of the maintenance, that maybe do a few updates and so on. Because if you deploy something, it's not said that it's going to work in 6 months.
That's where the data scientists come in, which you hired a year ago. So they can support on these stuff. No, but honestly, like a lot of businesses are still struggling with their data analytics or data science departments, like generating a lot of value. And I think for a lot of data scientists, there's only like two options they could go. There's one option going into the more technical route, becoming data engineers, working more like, hands-on, building the infrastructure and the data. And if you don't want to do this, I think a very good plan B is to like transition more into a people-facing role. It could be data product management, could be data strategy, like whatever that is called in your company. But essentially, it's all about making sure that like you have the right use cases on the agenda and that there's someone driving these use cases and also taking care of things like maintenance and all these things. And I think data scientists, like actually, why not have data scientists do these job roles if they are qualified for this? So yeah.
Let's say we have a company here. It's not a super large use case, right? We're going to go for low-hanging fruits to make some money. Let's say, or what would you say? How many people do you really need? Like a company that has up to 1,000 people, right?
For what do you mean?
For a short but helpful language model use case to have this then. After you've gone and done your work, and it's live, and they need to keep it the way that it is. Like, how many people would you say they would need?
Yeah, I think like
what
you
do
need
guess?
Like 2 pizza rule, team size, which is about like maximum 6 people, including people hiring or coming from externally, like supporting this use case. So at the very minimum, you need one ambitious leader internally who is kind of like A, of course, funding the project, but also B, making sure that you have alignment to other stakeholders in the business. Because a lot of data science, not only data science, but I would say generally technology or digital use cases are failing because they are not aligned inside the organization. It's because there's someone in the organization saying, now I can do something better than you, right? And then you have these organizational fights going on. And so you have to have a leader inside the company who is, kind of like making sure that this is not happening. So if you have this, like I would say like 50% of the work is already complete. And the next one should be someone who is really good on the operational and business side of the topics, like knowing how the business processes look like, knowing where the pain points actually are, like really being a hands-on and day-to-day person in the business. So, and then if you have a third person who has a little bit of a technical background from IT, who is also open-minded to like bringing in some or building a POC or building a prototype or trying out something new, I think you're in a great spot, right? If you have that trio, that's good. Everything else, of course, comes on top. But I don't believe you need to have the super highly qualified AI PhD and whatnot to make the first steps. I don't think so. I think most importantly, you need to figure out what is your business currently struggling with. And I have 2 concepts for that. I say like you either can have a very high pain point where you say, for example, okay, like customer service is just taking too long. Like we need 2 days to respond to customer queries. That's just like not working. So that could be a concrete pain point. The other thing is what I call a bottleneck. A bottleneck is something which is like not aware, where the business is not aware that it actually has a problem. For example, what I see very often still in the B2B space is that you have these e-com platforms in B2B that are not serving recommendations at all. So why don't you do recommendations? I'm not telling you should like implement AI, but you could just like come up with a simple heuristic or just like suggest the like most popular product or something like this. Well, why don't you do this? So this is an unaware pain, and sometimes it needs like a look from outside or from like a leader inside the company of saying like, actually like we don't really have a pain there, but like it seems like we are leaving something here. Like something is not being realized. And when you identify these, I think this is the first step to then figure out how AI could actually help you with that in the next run. But that's only step 2.
But so you don't. It's not as a big of a hill than a lot of people think.
No, it's not. And I think this is really like what especially large language models have allowed us to do, because like imagine like thinking 1 year back, of course there were AI services. In fact, I've written a book, AI Powered BI, which included a lot of AI services from Azure back then. But they were not that good as what we have right now. It was really hard to use a computer vision model from Azure Cognitive Services and implement that, because there were a lot of things that could fail. Meanwhile, if you use the computer vision API from ChatGPT or from like GPT-4 Turbo, the latest model, it's actually pretty good. Like you can almost throw anything at it, you get something back. The only problem is it's not deterministic. So sometimes it can work well, sometimes maybe it does not work well. So, and what do you do? So you have to, the only way forward, at least in the short term, is to augment that with humans in the loop. But I think this allows you also to ship something and bring something into production which like does not have to be like at 99% accuracy. And this was the case before, because you were building for this highly integrated, highly automated use case. So it had to reach that super high like accuracy or performance metric. And I think nowadays, because we have a human in the loop anyway, and we are more in this kind of augmented scenario where it helps people make better decisions, that like you can just afford to do more quote unquote failure in the model, because in the end it's still the human that can decide of like what to do, or what kind of process to trigger, or what kind of email to send customer again. And I'm talking a lot about like customer here, because these are the services that or departments that I work mostly with, like sales, marketing, customer support, personal productivity. And like if you think about these are all the ones that perfectly align with LLM capabilities. So I don't think you can cover everything with generative AI, especially like if you do time series forecasting. I mean, good luck with generative AI, it doesn't work. But still, like you don't have to try to fight these battles at the first stage. Like, why don't you go with these things that are working for other businesses as well? It can be something as easy as like just improving your content production for your marketing team. Like, why do you do this? So there can be lots of examples.
How do you see? We were talking a lot about OpenAI and language models or other things that you use via API. How do you see privacy in that topic? Because as a business, you might be hesitant to feed that OpenAI system with your company data. Right?
Yeah. So I think there are two aspects, like privacy and security. I think for privacy, of course, like, you can't really argue about that. You have privacy laws in place. You're not allowed to send personal information to OpenAI services if they are in the US, and if you don't have the consent. So you're just not allowed to do this. So what you can do is maybe use something hosted inside Europe or get the consent. Well, that's the kind of like PII route, which like there's not much just discussion on that. The second one, which I think like there's more discussion on that, is the security route. It's like, to what degree do you want to share company data with an external third party? And I would argue that like there's a spectrum of possibilities. It's not like either you do it or you don't, right? So of course, like the worst example is to just paste something in, assistant use case, into ChatGPT, because like data is used for retraining the model. So it's like literally like thrown over the fence to OpenAI. But you could also do something like a level lower, and using the OpenAI APIs. It's still OpenAI, but it's the API, so data is not being used for training. They contractually say they are not using that for training. Maybe that might be good enough for you, so you can just use the API. If that doesn't convince you, you can go to Microsoft, consume that from Microsoft. They have their own contracts. And if that doesn't convince you, you can go with an open source LLM. So whatever there are different options available. And I think in the end, you also have to make a business case for this, because for some data, simply you just don't care. Like, I had this marketing example data. Let's say you use large language models to fill your content pipeline for the next 6 months for your marketing department, which I think is a totally valid use case. You would say, okay, I don't care sharing my data with OpenAI. It's going to be public anyway. So that might be a reasoning for this. But of course, if you have more internal use cases and more internal data, it might be worth investing into either like Azure OpenAI Studio, so you have data centers in Europe and you have the contractual agreement with Microsoft and not with OpenAI, or if you're like super critical about your own security and private data, you can do it with an in-house open source model, which granted often does not have the same performance as the other ones, and also is not that cheap. But it's a trade-off in the end. So you have to, you have to just figure out what works for your actual use case in this case.
Does that come up with your customers often? The topic?
Yeah, not so much. Like the most likely or most popular outcome right now is to actually go with Microsoft services, because the reality is a lot of companies are actually already on Microsoft stack. They know, okay, Microsoft has all our emails anyway. We are on SharePoint 365. Like, okay, like what's the point, right? And then we are like, okay, it's just another service. Yeah, but essentially it's just another service. And I think this is actually a pretty big leverage by Microsoft, which they can pull, because even internally, like I have clients who say, okay, like we need to onboard our IT, and then they say, okay, we can also use Azure, and they say, oh, fine, we don't need to do anything. Actually, we can just use it because it's all like inside one ecosystem, and that's it.
That's actually a very interesting point, because I see that with my academy lately, that people are very interested in the Azure stuff. It was a long time, it was AWS was the one thing that everybody wanted to do, and now more and more people are asking, do you have even more on Azure? Can you do this on Azure? Because as you said, the companies are already in the Microsoft ecosystem. They are most likely also already working with Azure, and then it's easy to do everything. All the contracts are already done.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, between you and me, I don't think that companies really care about the security aspect really that much, but they care about contracts. They need to have all the contracts in place legally that makes them free, from anything worse that can happen, right? So, and of course, I mean, they care about security and so on, but it's just much easier if you have all the paperwork in place, and all you need to do is just like make another signature, and that's it. And I think, but that's totally valid. That's totally fine. Like, I would do the same thing if I was on the Microsoft stack. I think it's just more difficult for companies who are like, not using Microsoft, in terms of like, okay, what do we do? Should we open up this, our data sources to Microsoft in this aspect? But yeah, a lot of like people I work with are on Microsoft anyway. So yeah, that's what they do.
No, but it's an interesting transition, or interesting thing that is going on with Microsoft right now.
And I think this is like also probably why Satya Nadella is kind of supporting OpenAI so much, because if like this bet fails, I think they will have a huge problem, because what they are selling right now is, or what's at stake right now is credibility and trustworthiness of Microsoft. Like if something is not working out there, or if they have like major problems in terms of delivering the services, they will be in huge trouble. So
let's see.
Let's see.
I'm positive that this will work out great.
Yeah, me too. They have all the money in the world. They will figure it out. So
that's true. But one thing I wanted to mention before I forget, I think it's also the whole privacy and data security thing. That's also something where employees need to be educated on, right? That they don't post certain stuff into these systems, because I remember like a few years ago, DeepL was the big translator, right? And like a colleague, like, how did you come up with the translation of that contract into German so quickly? Well, I posted everything into the whole thing into DeepL, like the whole PDF. It's like, no, please don't do that.
Too late.
Too late.
Like it's actually funny, because like I recently got one client where I helped them building something like an internal Gen AI academy, so to enable people use generative AI responsibly. And like what we do is like we come up with the concept, figure out what kind of user groups do we actually have, and I think at some point doing something like this makes totally sense, especially if you're a business that is very much affected by this whole AI trend. And like there are some industries, especially finance, for example, is one of the great example industry that's highly affected, but also marketing industry. So if you have this, if you are in one of these industries that is affected so much by AI, I think it makes sense to upskill your people and also just tell people what to do and what not to do with these tools. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that that should happen. But at the same time, it's like no one really told us how to Google, right? There was no or how to use Wikipedia. There was no company initiatives back then saying, okay, this is how you use a Google search, right? Just people figure it out over time. So I'm not 100% sure if, I would not say right now that every company needs to have this kind of enablement strategy. I think it makes definitely sense for those businesses where you have a lot of these horizontal use cases in your organizations where you are seeing that a lot of people, or that you as an organization want a lot of people to use GenAI technology. It makes absolutely sense to enable them. But if you don't, just very, very hard. I just see one question in the chat, which I would
let's jump to. I also saw a few interesting questions. Let's jump to a question. Which one do we want to jump to? From who?
I like the one from Michael here, from Michael Norris. He says, "Do we think? Do we think we have a good handle on estimating costs for taking and maintaining an AI project? Any advice or tips?" I think this is a great question because it's at the beginning very hard to estimate costs, especially if you look at longer term projects. So I just can say how I do it. So my approach is I apply the 20-20 rule, which is like the first prototype should not cost more than 20,000 euros or 20 days of labor. And this is like a rough ballpark figure, which has worked for me pretty well for building the first thing. If it's much more than that, that's probably an indication that the scope is too large. If it's much smaller than that, can be still a good use case. But in many cases, like you will have some customized effort in these things, because otherwise it's just, okay, people are using ChatGPT, like, okay, go ahead and do this. But for the long-term project planning, I think it's really difficult to do this. It's very similar to agile software releases with software development, where you have different increments in sprints, but you don't really know how many sprints you will take for this whole project because there's so many uncertainties involved. But that's how I approach it, like limiting the downsides at the very beginning.
But also from a technical side, it's always difficult to, like, what's going to be the growth in the company? How many API codes are you going to have? How much resources from a back end perspective do you need to push in that? It's and with the pricing, sometimes it's very difficult to actually figure out the exact pricing for stuff.
Yeah,
because of the different pricing schemas.
It is.
Interesting. Do you want someone else here? That one. Can you give advice on how to get business owners who aren't too aware of AI and its power to trust it in their organization? That is something. I guess that's something you're fighting with.
Oh, yes. So, and I have thought about that a long time, actually, because I thought at the very beginning, okay, whatever comes, you have to start with a business problem at first. Like, whatever it is, like you have to understand your business first. But now I think that's only step 2. I think step 1 is, because this whole technology is so fundamental, it's changing so many things. As a business leader, you have to at least get a high-level understanding what AI is. Just because there's so many buzzwords out there, everything which is like somehow technical is just claimed to be AI, and you need to be aware of what AI is. And I don't say that you need to be a data scientist, but you should know, for example, that like what generative AI is, that like it can have random outputs, like these are not deterministic. You should know that there are other AI possibilities. You should know what are like typical use cases. And again, like there are tons of online courses out there which you can just take, like, for free in 1 or 2 days. It doesn't make you an AI expert, but it definitely helps you to think about AI in a different way than before, where you probably just had a very, very high level understanding that this is something like for the tech people. It's not. I think this is the main difference. So you have to understand at least the fundamental capabilities. That's what I talk, for example, about with the 5 AI archetypes, where I say you essentially have AutoML on tabular data, then you have computer vision, natural language processing, and audio processing, and then you have generative AI as a multimodal AI approach, and you can dive deeper from there. But whatever you choose, you should have some clarity in your head of what you mean when you talk about AI. And once you have that, I think it makes things so much easier to mapping that to your business. So yeah, and then coming back to the question, I think you should, in your leadership team of your company, you should have some initiatives that allows them to learn these things and what it is, and at least be able to understand what are the like key core components that are here that are also not going away. Because LLMs, for example, they will be, at least for the foreseeable future, be non-deterministic. What do, right? That's it, right? You can't just hope for the best and hope that in next year, like they will have like super predictable outcomes all the time. They probably won't do this. So yeah.
Yeah, but like when back to that question, when we read this, or when I read this, it feels like Tia here is in a position where the actual business owner doesn't have trust in this, right? And you said before, like you need a sponsor, you need basically who drives this, you need somebody from the business who understands the business and finds the initiatives, and then people who do stuff. But without that sponsor, like if they don't want, then it doesn't make sense to push this upwards, right?
Yeah. The only like you have to prove, not to show. Yes, yeah, you have to prove by showing things. So if you have I was at a conference last week, and there was actually the same questions, like how do I get additional budget for an AI initiative if no one actually believes in this, and how do I get trust and so on. And my answer to this was try to find a use case which is so small so you can fund it from your own from your own budget, from your own department. If you can't find a use case which you can fund from your own department, you're looking for the wrong use case. There are definitely use cases which, like an average small and medium-sized company department can just build on their own. It might be kind of incremental, it might be small, but it should be enough to prove that this is like at least on a conceptual level working, and it should pay off towards that bigger picture and vision of saying, okay, listen, like we can do this with this little money. So why don't we do the next couple of steps and walk into this direction? Because we believe that this direction is what will impact our business in the next 2 to 3 years. And I think this is the kind of narrative you need to drive. But yeah, if you have business leaders who are not willing to live this or to do this, like there's not much you can do, because AI will not work from bottom up. But it won't work. Like I think no digital initiative will work from bottom up. Like you need to have top level commitment to this, and you need to have at least a management that is like only tolerating these things. That could be enough. But if you have a management that is completely resistant on change, I mean, like good luck. Like I will be kind of trying to see what else is out there on the job market, honestly. Because I think this is like the only concept is change. It sounds so dumb, but it's so true, especially in the foreseeable future. Like, yeah, I had the discussion just like 2 hours ago with someone who said, like, should we actually like make these big investments into AI or generally technology? Like, is it actually worth making these like big investments because we don't know what's coming? And honestly, I think there was never a time where it's so hard to say, yes, let's commit to like a multi-million-dollar AI project for the next foreseeable, because everything is just so dynamic. I think it's a really tough spot. The only thing you can really do right now is to do something. Like, don't overthink these things. Look out what kind of use cases are there that deliver a positive ROI, and just go for them. Like, don't overthink it. Don't spend like 6 months working on an AI strategy with 200 slide decks of PowerPoint and getting 2 other consultants in to like validate your AI strategy. But this is like where I see companies spending money like 100,000 euros just on building an AI strategy. I'm like, what is that? Like, for 100,000 euros, you could have like built at least 5 prototypes, right? And now you just have the PowerPoint presentation. And honestly, the PowerPoint presentation is just worthless because you don't know if it's actually going to work. You have to go to the field and try it out.
Isn't that usually for larger corporations the case? For these small companies, like,
yeah, I have already seen companies in my kind of bracket with like 1,000 employees, like spending like $70,000-$80,000 or euros in this case on a presentation. Just on a presentation, getting consultants in, and the output was a PowerPoint essentially. It was a really nice PowerPoint, granted, like, you know, it was a lot of smart stuff in there, but I think this is not what's driving the needle. but I do understand where this is coming from. Like especially like, I mean, German companies, right? We are a lot of businesses have been around here for, I don't know, very long time. Like they plan in 5-year like horizons. Like they want to predict like where everything is going, and this is why they want to be really conscious about what next move to take. Like they want to kind of like just get the maximum assurance that the next step they take is going to be the correct one. But I think this is right now the wrong mental model to operate in. You can't be 100% sure that the next step you take is the right one, because like there's so many factors involved, like, you know, worldwide, globally, economically, like microeconomically in your business, that it's super hard to predict what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So, and I don't say like walk into the future blindly, but I just say, okay, acknowledge that you have this uncertainty in your business. So what do? Like you do small bets, you take small steps, you try to like, you know, go piece by piece. And of course you want to have a larger picture and a larger vision, but I think it's much more important to execute instead of like have this big overarching market master plan with all the details laid out, and then just have a rough roadmap, know where you're going to, but be able to like take these small steps and just like be able to go left and right, whatever happens in between.
Yeah, I also like how you said it. Like you have these projects that are under the radar, and then once it's not super expensive, but once it's done, like ta-da!
Yeah.
Here, look at what we feel. Oh, that's nice. But if you would come to the management and say, we want to build this, it's not going to cost much. No.
Yeah,
But
and the funny thing, what happens is if you take a project that route, like people tend to make it overly complex and also exaggerate the value because they think, you know, this is not big enough for the executive board presentation, right? I can't show that, right? It's just too small. So, and I would say like before you think about that, you just leave it out completely. You know, just do it, right? And just try to get to a level where this project gets a little traction also internally, and then you can just still take it from there. But I mean, man, there are so many company politics involved in the whole process. So this has nothing to do with technology at some point anymore. But but don't make things more complicated than they are, especially right now. It's just some things are super straightforward.
Tobias, how long are you doing this for?
So Rapid AI exists for 3 years now. I've myself been working as a data scientist for 5-6 year-ish before. So I wrote my book last year. That's more or less the timeline. But I've been working in a corporate setting like for the past, like before founding my startup, for the past 10, 12 years. Yeah.
Because like we were a bit of on a slope that was going down, and management is very difficult. But I'm guessing this, as like you said, this changed over the past years, right? It's gotten more traction. It's getting easier.
Yeah. I think the pain is growing. The pain is growing more and more. So we are not. I mean, especially we in Germany, we see that like, you know, the overall economic competition is super tough. So you need to innovate. You need to change something. Everyone else out there is changing. So I think the pain is just growing. So, and management is realizing this. Yeah, but also at the same time, there are also like pretty good use cases, very good like, you know, showcases that people see that are actually working in the field. Again, like, you know, a lot of these coming from marketing, content automation, improving content writing, improving your whole, like, you know, marketing materials online. Customer support chatbots is something that I do, which really works pretty well, especially for the first level customer support. It's really easy to set up and implement. Every business that has a very large FAQ, you just go build a chatbot. It actually costs nothing, you know, but you just like, yeah, it's just such a better customer experience. You don't get all these emails all the time. And yeah, so I think there are like really lots of use cases that really spread the word. And I think especially that kind of word of mouth marketing, this is also something that works in companies. So if something works here and they figure out, okay, like these guys are doing this and it seems to work pretty well, you know, like the adoption is pretty quick. As long as, you know, one is demonstrating that this is actually working, this is always a pretty strong indicator to get things going, and also to convince skeptical minds, I would say.
It's normal that some people are skeptical.
And it's good. Yeah, it's good. Like, always be skeptical at the beginning. Like, that's not a bad thing, actually. So, but at some point, you have to take a little calculated risk, I think.
Okay. Well, I think that's a nice ending. Take some risk. Not too big.
Yeah. Calculated.
Calculated. And yeah.
Think big, but small steps.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Tobias, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andreas. It was my pleasure.
It was really nice chatting with you and super cool insights here. Find Tobias on LinkedIn. Tobias, there were a few more questions on LinkedIn. Maybe after we end here, you can maybe answer them.
Yeah, sure. I'll check the comments. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks everyone for joining. That was great. Thanks for all the comments here.
Thanks everybody. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.